Hello and welcome to Words with Ro. So, I've decided to put together some tips on writing poetry. These tips are for the outliers. These are for the people who think they haven't got two words in their head, that struggle with concentration, that are dyslexic, that are told they would never be writers. Disclaimer, I am not an expert. But what I do have is an understanding of poetry, a very high level of understanding. And I know what makes poems great. I read a lot of poetry, as you know. So I'm passing on these tips to you because I want you to be able to write. And if you are an academic, I know that you'll probably be triggered by this video, but please know this is for beginners, and this is to empower people, and this is a starting point. But who knows, maybe you have something to learn here too, because when you intellectualize things too much, you become other from them. So anyway, these tips are for everyone. They're easy to understand. They're a great starting point. I hope you enjoy them. I hope you'll practice them. And if you do practice them and if you get somewhere with them, let me know in the comments section, because I want to know I'm actually being of use. And if you want to see more videos like this, let me know, because I can dive a lot deeper. Okay, everyone, here we go. How to write poetry. So my very first step is don't think, feel. You heard me. Don't think, feel. The reason why I recommend this for people starting out is when we think, it confuses what we feel. I'll give you an example. You decide you want to write a poem about something that's really upset you. You're angry. Somebody has lied to you. Somebody's hurt you. But is anger the core feeling? You're angry because they hurt you. You're angry because they broke a contract with you. You're upset because they lied, they were dishonest. But when they lied and they were dishonest, what they did was they chose themselves. They didn't choose you. They abandoned you. And this made you sad, and this made you hurt, and this made you fearful, because that is your primordial feeling. So when you think about it, you're angry, but the real feeling is hurt and abandonment. And that is why I recommend that you feel and you don't think when there's a subject that you wish to approach in your poetry. My next tip for beginners, again, may be counterintuitive. What I'm going to say to you is to stay in your imagination and don't write. Don't write anything. Stay in your imagination for as long as possible. Initially, poetry was an oral art. People weren't even able to write. It helped them make sense of the world, and it helped them remember things. Various different myths have carried down through generations, through the ages, because of these processes that people learn to remember and to relate and make sense of the world. So what I want you to do is I want you not to write. You're like, what? I just clicked on this video because I want to learn to write poetry. Okay, just do me a favor. Right now, stay in your imagination. Okay, stay in your imagination, because if you write, I guarantee if you try to put pen to paper and go, oh, I'm going to write about a day at the beach, you'll be trying to think and you'll be trying to write at the same time, and there might be a delay. But if I say to you, close your eyes, you're at the beach, it's a sunny day, you can hear the seagulls, you can smell the cotton candy, you can hear children playing, you can hear the lapping of the water. What you're having is called a synesthesia. And synesthesia is how all these sights and sounds are all related and they evoke memories. So let's just pick something that you want to write about and go into your imagination and realize, again, going back to feeling, what you're feeling, what you're experiencing. How does it smell? What sounds do you hear? How do you feel in your body? Do you feel warm and tingly? Are you freezing cold and the wind is lashing your face? So I want you to close your eyes and stay in your imagination long before you ever put pen to paper. But what you can do is, if you think of a subject and you come up with these ideas and you're experiencing this synesthesia, when you open your eyes, you can write some ideas down. My next tip may seem really obvious, but I feel that you need to be reminded anyway. Everyone needs to be reminded of this, no matter what walk of life. There are no barriers to you writing poetry. The only barrier that exists to you writing poetry is yourself. That means your age doesn't matter. That means your education level doesn't matter. If you have dyslexia, that doesn't matter. I'm dyslexic. If you haven't written or read a book in years, that doesn't matter. We're going to get you there. There are no barriers. The only barrier is you saying that you can't do it and you not applying yourself to it. So believe me when I say 100% you can write a poem and you can write a good poem. My next tip may surprise you. My next tip is practice in secret. Yes, you heard that. Practice in secret. Because I am going to tell you at a later point, when you've studied, when you've read the classics, when you've written maybe about 50 poems, absolutely read your poem out loud to somebody else. But right now, when you're just starting out, and this goes for any art, you need to protect yourself from criticism. Of course, criticism is important, and one of the things that we need in life as artists is a very thick skin, because believe me, everyone has an opinion. But I recommend that you do yourself a favor and you go into a protective mode. And let's just say you work in a bank and the person that you sit beside and you have lunch with every day, I don't recommend that you turn around to them and say, I want to be a poet and I'm learning to write poetry, because there's a good chance that they may poo poo your idea. And if you are somebody who's influenced by what other people think, there's going to be a problem there. So put your shell around you like a tortoise and practice in secret. Go into your imagination in secret. Come up with words in secret. Learn new words in secret. And then you're going to surprise them all. My next tip for writing your own poetry is to get yourself a book. In fact, you can get that long before the imagination exercises. Put your name on it. Hide it if you want to take my previous tip. Keep it beside your bed. Have it in maybe your handbag, your backpack, whatever. But get yourself a book of plain pages, and this is where you're going to write your ideas down. Because it's very important that, just as an artist would, maybe be inspired when they're on the tube or the subway, or going for a walk in nature. You're going to hear words all the time, and you're going to make connections between words. But it's very easy. A lot of people are suffering from short-term memory loss at the moment. So it's very easy to, make a word connection. And it's like an epiphany, and you say, oh my God, I must remember that for my poem. And believe me, you're going to forget because you're distracted. You all of a sudden have to take money out of your bag to pay for something, whatever it is. So have a notebook where you're going to write things down. It doesn't have to, in the beginning, it doesn't have to be full poems. It can just be the words connections, the ideas for poems. I get this all the time. I'll have like an idea for a film, an idea for a poem. So sometimes it's just the idea, or maybe you look at something, a common household item, and you never looked at it that way before. You look at it in a mindful way, and you think, oh, that might be an interesting subject matter for a poem, to write about my bedroom window. So that's my recommendation, that you get yourself a book that's yours. and that you're very precious about. Okay, so my next tip, again, sounds a little bit weird or counterintuitive. What it is to write about something you don't want to write about. The reason I'm giving you this exercise is that you can get faster and faster at coming up with words and word connections and ideas and metaphors and things to compare the item or the subject matter to. The reason I say this is we all know what we love, we all know what we like, we all know what we enjoy, and obviously writing a poem about anything that we're passionate about is super easy. Oh, I can write 20 poems about love. I can write 100 poems about love, and similarly with nature. But if you said to me, I want you to write a poem about a common kitchen household item that's in the drawer, you might go, oh my God. But I want you to have fun with this, okay? Don't take it too seriously. Just look at that item, whatever it is. Let's just say it's a wooden spoon. Actually, when I think of a wooden spoon, I think of being punished when I was younger. But maybe it's stirring a sauce. Maybe somebody else uses it in a DIY project. Maybe it's all shriveled because the person put it in the dishwasher. Just look at one item, whatever that item is. It could be anything in the house. It could be anything outside. Maybe it's your rubbish bins, where the neighbors don't do the recycling properly and it annoys you. Take that subject matter, something that you not maybe that even annoys you, and make it fun and just find loads of words and loads of ideas about it. And the more you do that, then when it comes to other things that you want to write about, even heavy subject matter, maybe you want to write a poem, a peace poem, an anti-war poem, you will be a lot faster at making connections with words and seeing patterns and word connections. So this is what I recommend for you. Take something you do not want to write about and write about it and have fun doing it. Okay, so my next tip for writers, by the way, the sun is going in and out and in and out, so the light may be inconsistent in these tips. That's all it is. It's not something technical today, it's Mother Nature. Anyway, my next tip is literary devices. I know this is going to be delving a little bit deeper. You might feel uncomfortable with that, but actually, these are things that you already know. They're in your consciousness. It's how we use the words, the literary devices, the mechanics of poetry. So just even look up the meanings of them, because if you look up the meanings of them and find out what they are, and you're aware, you'll already be aware of them. I guarantee you. You will then be reminded how it's something you can use. For example, onomatopoeia is when the word used for the thing actually sounds like what it is, like sizzle or cuckoo. So there's so many literary devices. Look up rhythm, the kind of rhythms you can have. There's a structure to poems, and you can actually get very analytical about it, and you can say, I'm going to write a poem in this structure, and give yourself that little test. So you've got rhythm, you've got meter, you've got assonance, you've got using the vowels, using the consonants again to create that kind of synesthesia. So get inside the language, understand the power of words, the mechanics of poetry, and the literary devices. They are your friends. Don't be afraid if it sounds a bit technical. The language is your friend. Use it. The language is for everyone. Use it. So my final tip is very obvious, but I'm going to say it anyway. I need you to read poetry. I also need you to listen to poetry. So you can read all of the classics. I highly recommend you do this, even if you're a modern poet, because what happens in all the great cities all over the world, do people arrive there and say, I want to go to a modern art gallery? No, usually they go and they visit classical paintings. And it's the same with poetry. You need to look at why these poets have changed the world and touched people's hearts. You don't have to emulate those poets, but it's just very important that you read some of what they've done. And don't get overwhelmed by it. You don't have to deep dive into Wordsworth. Read one or two of his poems, and then you can say, oh, I see why people like that. I see, oh, there's a bit of a literary device that he's used, that helps people feel a certain way, about the subject matter. So please read poems, and please listen to poems. There's a lot of great poem channels on YouTube, need I remind you? So listen to poems. You may have a favorite person that you like narrating them. And then when you're confident, because I did tell you to prepare in secret, but when you're confident enough, read your poems out loud. I guarantee you, if you read your poems out loud, all of a sudden you'll go, oh, actually, I don't like the way that sounds. I'm going to change that. So you might go back and re-edit. But I cannot emphasize enough, you need to read some of the classics, not all of them, but maybe just one poem from every poet. That would be a great place to start. And if you can, on top of that, read or listen to some philosophy, because poetry is ultimately trying to help us make sense of the world. So if you're reading poetry or philosophy, if you if you read some philosophy books or listen to some great philosophers, again, you can do this on YouTube. You can do it on Audible. It doesn't need to be that you buy a load of hardback books and sit down and study for 5 hours a night. Just explore some different ideas. These philosophers have a different way of looking at the world, being outside the matrix. Maybe they're talking about, maybe they're anti-capitalist. Whatever it is, it's exploring different ways of looking at the world and understanding our human condition and helping one another through the power of words. So that's all I have for you today. I really hope it helps. And you can let me know in the comment section. Thanks so much for joining me.